San Diego State transfer Nick Boyd, formerly of FAU, visiting North Carolina. Riley, President Tar Heel fan here on the channel. Nick Boyd has been in college since the 2020-2021 season, is eligible for a sixth year because obviously the COVID year did not count. He then redshirted the following year, so technically his freshman season was FAU's Final Four season. Averaged 13 and a half points per game on just over 41% shooting from three last year. Riley, nearly four assists, four boards per game. We know he's a pretty steady, reliable guard. What do you make of the fact that UNC is interested in him and the fact that he's interested in UNC?
Yeah, first off, I think it's pretty funny that, UNC has heard jokes about Armando Bacot and RJ Davis for the last half decade about how old they are and everything. What do they do when RJ Davis finally graduates? They go and recruit someone who's the same age as him that they can get for another year. Yeah, I know he completed his visit this past weekend in Chapel Hill, and he's the kind of guard who I think how do I put this? I would love him as like a sixth man, but I think he's being recruited as a starter for UNC. And that's something that might be reflective about the state of the program. I hope that doesn't sound overly negative because I do think he would be a good add. But, in my mind, like I think about the elite Tar Heel teams, he's the type of dude who would be awesome as like let's say Seth Trimble's coming back, I believe, for UNC.
Mhm.
If you played Seth Trimble next to like Kobe White, if Kobe White exists in this theoretical universe and you have Nick Boyd as your third guard out of that group, I think he'd be awesome in that role. Only issue is I don't really see a lead guard of that caliber to kind of take the reins unless Carolina somehow pulls off Jacoby Gillespie or something, like looking at the portal. So yeah, I mean the one of the biggest traits about him is he does seem to fit that dog mentality of like, he's a winner. He's played in a national, no, Final Four, excuse me. He's played for some good teams, played for a tough defensive minded head coach. And even looking at his tape, I do like some of the, I would say like some of the true point guard skill that he could bring with less volatility than Elliot Cadeau offered. Like he had a pretty high assist rate, he's top 15 in the Mountain West, and looks to be a pretty good pick and roll playmaker. I don't think he's going to make the same wow passes that Elliot Cadeau did. However, he does profile as someone who takes care of the ball a lot better. Like even looking at those conference
Yeah.
numbers this year. Turnover rate was low, 24th lowest in the Mountain West and the ninth highest assist rate. That's like tough to argue with that this kid is just like solid. And I think when you couple in like he's got decent positional size, 6'3", can play on or off ball, gets to the free throw line at a pretty good rate as well. Could be a little more efficient finishing around the basket, I think. If you want to knock his offense, that's probably the biggest critique I would say. But a capable three-point shooter as well. Just I would say all around solid to where he's probably not going to single-handedly win you many games, but don't think he will cost you games either.
Career 37% three-point shooter. He's got a career assist to turnover ratio that's better than 2 to 1. It's 2.5 to 1.2. So whatever math that checks out to one is what that checks out to. But I know that's better than 2 to 1. Really good, solid defender as well, certainly. This is kind of the maybe splitting hairs for me, and maybe where we differ in opinion on Nick Boyd. Because if you put him as a starter next to Ian Jackson, like I think that fit is pretty good because you have
Mhm.
that Boyd's skill set allows Ian Jackson to be the scorer, to be the guy who goes gets buckets and doesn't worry about anything else because like Boyd is handling everything else while
Mhm.
handling secondary scoring duties as well. To me, that would check out. But you prefer to have him come off the bench, or do you think he can kind of fill that starting role if there is some other support behind him as well?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, Ralph. I think if they were to retain Ian Jackson or bring in an Ian Jackson type player at the two, that would be a really good pairing. My thing is like alongside Seth Trimble in a starting lineup, if you're penciling
Yeah.
Seth in as a starter, that's where I think that's just not enough scoring, not enough shot creation in the backcourt to where, in that sense, I would look for him to come off the bench. But I could definitely see like he's the type of savvy vet guard who like could pair really well with a bucket getting two guard.
Would you let's say Trimble comes back, Ian Jackson comes back, they land Nick Boyd. The Tar Heels do.
Hmm.
Who do you start?
In that scenario, I'd probably start Boyd at the one, Ian at the two, and then have Seth as like your super sub off the bench.
That gets into if Seth still wants to do that.
Yeah, right, right.
Which
That's It's a lot to maintain. I don't know, Ralph. I think like for me, I'm watching the elite programs around the country, whether it's Alabama or Duke or Florida or Tennessee, and they have high quality players, high quality portal ads for some of these teams that they convince to come off the bench and buy into their role. And I want Carolina to be at that level where, you know, they're able to bring in blue chippers and say, hey, you might not start, you got to compete and earn that, but like we can at least guarantee you like a sixth, seventh man type role. I don't think UNC's at that state right now, like not under this current coaching staff. I think there's too many questions around Hubert and his assistants for really the elite level guys to say, maybe not even elite, just like the really good, solid role
Yeah.
players to come in and say, hey, I'm cool with whatever role there is. Like at the same time, when I see a player like Nick Boyd, if Alabama or if like Todd Golden was in on Nick Boyd, I'd be like, oh, surely this dude is a stud. He feel, I mean, maybe that's dumb to say because it's like good coaches being into good players makes a lot of sense. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, Ralph, he kind of profiles as the type of veteran guard that a championship caliber team would look to add to buy into whatever role it is.
Mhm.
And I just don't think Carolina's quite on that level. Maybe even like this upcoming year, they haven't signed anybody. It's like the only guarantees on the roster right now seems like Caleb Wilson and Derek Dixon and Isaiah Dennis. Like who knows who else is coming back? Who knows who they're going to sign? To where that's the only like pause I have is kind of what you were getting at. Is there going to be enough perimeter scoring around him? Is he
Yeah.
going to have to shoulder too much of the load? Because I think if I'm not mistaken, I had his Bart page pulled up earlier. I want to say I know he led San Diego State in scoring. I would assume he led them in usage as well.
He was up there. Now, San Diego State was not the most explosive offensive team in the country, as we saw in that first four game that the Aztecs played. Um, and Boyd was the one who carried that. Like, we're going to look at his numbers last year, and they're fine. 13 and a half points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. I've held this true with the players who are on San Diego State's national championship runner-up team that have then transferred to other places that have all generally done better than they did at San Diego State. Take people out of that offense and they produce better because that's like a 1980s style offense where everything is crowded. There's not a lot of movement. There's not a lot of spacing, right? So I think 14 or 13 and a half points per game in San Diego State's offense is equivalent to about 16 to 17 in a regular offense.
That's a pretty good point.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think not that he's going to go into UNC or wherever else he goes and becomes an offensive superstar, but I think there is some legitimate juice there, certainly. Because
Mhm.
the thing about like played for FAU behind two guys that played in the Elite Eight, right?
Mhm.
Or the Sweet 16. John L. Davis for Arkansas, and then Elijah Martin still playing, obviously, for Florida in the Final Four. Then you go to San Diego State, where you're playing in an archaic offense. It's going to limit your production. I think like getting out of that system, being somewhere where you can have a bigger role will do wonders for his numbers. I think we could see him be one of those guys who is like, we talk about him being a 6 year guy, kind of like we talk about John Tonji this year, right? Where he broke out. It's like, oh, where was this guy? And he finally figured it out. I think Nick Boyd could be on a similar trajectory. I don't want to project John Tonji All American type numbers on Nick Boyd, but it wouldn't surprise me given the other factors that have played into his career. Now, visited North Carolina. Syracuse, Seton Hall, and Wisconsin are also believed to be recruiting Boyd as well, along with some others. If UNC is not able to land Boyd, what does that say about the Tar Heels?
Can we not do this question? Just
Okay,
like
we will not. So,
I'm just playing. I'm just playing. If you can't beat out, I think he visited Wisconsin. I get that like Greg Gard kind of has the fun offense thing going right now. I was beating that drum that like wow, the Badgers play with pace. They share the ball really well. They shoot a lot of threes. It's a surprisingly fun brand of basketball to watch. At the same time, like stop acting like you're Wake Forest and just like do what it takes to get Nick Boyd if you really want him. Get Boyd and Gillespie, please. Like you can never have too many guards. Getting Nick Boyd does not prevent you from going after a higher level guard or retaining Ian Jackson should you choose. You know, like even though I would say to summarize my feelings, I kind of feel like I've been vacillating back and forth. You're talking me more into Nick Boyd. I like Nick Boyd. I don't want it to come across as disrespect at all because I do think he is a quality player. the only thing that I would say I had a little trepidation on is like looking at his numbers this past year. So he led San Diego State in usage. He did. I just checked that on Bart. San Diego State had the 124th best offense, and I get what you're saying. Like they suck offensively. That's kind of their MO. They play good defense, and that's what you're getting. That's all you're getting out of them. That does give me a little bit of fear that if he like, let's say they aren't able to land another guard, and you're looking at a Nick Boyd, Seth Trimble starting backcourt, that would give me fear for how much they'd be able to score. At the same time, Ralph, maybe I just need to lean into this that like all these Florida Atlantic players that transferred from that Final Four team have been good. So maybe you just take them and yeah, and trust that he is going to be productive.
I think you can. I think there's also the fact that Micah Parrish left San Diego State. His numbers went up. Even Elijah Saunders, who went to Virginia, numbers went up a little bit.
Hmm. Great
I,
points.
I think there's something to that with San Diego State, but I think Nick Boyd is a very, very good player who'd be very beneficial for UNC or whoever else is able to land him. We'll see where he ends up.
It is March, and that means that March Madness is upon us. And if you are looking for a place to play, Underdog Fantasy has you covered. Sign up and deposit using code SLEEPERS, that's code SLEEPERS, to receive up to $1,000 in bonus credit plus a free pick. Head over to Underdog Fantasy today and use promo code SLEEPERS to take advantage of this amazing offer.